Hello, friends. We are about to jump into an engaging and fruitful conversation that I had with someone that I've actually known for quite some time, and that is Alice Egan. She is the founder of SaaS Savvy. And fun fact, Alice and I were actually ex-colleagues at Zendesk many, many moons ago. But we've stayed in touch since we left, and I personally really loved following her founder and her entrepreneurial journey. And I'm really excited for her to share that with you. I hope this conversation educates you first and foremost on how you can break into tech or any industry for that matter. It's all about your mindset. But I also hope it gives you some insight into how your career can pivot and what you start your career with, what you might study, what experience you might have should never limit you to what it is that you can actually end up accomplishing. And I hope you also take away some practical tips if you are currently in the tech space with how to work with those who might be more technical than you, how to thrive in a technical environment, and yeah, really just take away anything around thriving in your role, careers, mindset, and just being a couple of gals working in tech and trying to figure it all out is really where it's at with this conversation. And before we jump into it, a reminder that Alice is running a free masterclass if you are looking to level up your tech and AI fluency. So you can sign up to the masterclass on her website. I will leave a link in the description. And with that being said, let's get into the conversation because it has been so long and I'm very excited to have a lengthy chat with Alice. Hi, Alice. Welcome to my YouTube channel.
Hi, Anika. Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
I like to say third time lucky, and you are officially my third guest on my channel. So I'm going to take that as a good luck charm. So thank you for being here. Let me give a quick intro to Alice, and then of course I'll hand it over to you to do your spiel on yourself. Alice and I are actually ex-colleagues from Zendesk, and weirdly, I just realized I've got my Zendesk cup here, which
Always repping.
always repping. Oh, I was in product. I think you were in solutions consulting / sales, which we'll get into. We actually never worked together directly, which I realized, but somehow we connected at some point. And I think we both realized we had this love for maybe educating others, other tech professionals. I was doing it with my TikTok and my YouTube channel, and you at the time were planning to kick off SaaS Savvy, which we're obviously going to talk a lot about today. So how are you doing first and foremost? It's the morning for you. You're still in London, if I'm not wrong.
I actually moved to Berlin 3 years ago. So I've been living here since. This is where I moved to join my fiance and also start SaaS Savvy. So I'm getting married on Monday. So this is one morning in the lead up. Yeah. Also just truly chuffed to be here to talk about SaaS Savvy and tech sales. And actually, I remember when we first met, basically, you were the product manager for the Salesforce integration, which when I was a pre-sales solutions consultant at Zendesk was a huge part of my daily conversations because all of my customers almost at a baseline wanted to connect Salesforce to Zendesk. So I remember going back and forth with you about some very minute details about how it worked. And then I looked you up on LinkedIn and then I saw your YouTube channel and I was like, okay, overlap from a different angle. Yeah.
That's right. And I think I was at that point where I was always really embarrassed when someone found my channel. And it's actually really cool to look back and see how far I've come because now it's nothing. Like everyone has a personal brand of some kind. But I remember at that point, it was a really big deal that someone in my company who I didn't really know too well was like, hey, I saw you had this channel. So yeah, it was awesome to connect. And since then, it's been multiple years since. You have obviously embarked on this incredible journey that we'll get into to build SaaS Savvy, solo founder, if I'm not wrong. And I've done various things. I'm actually back in the big tech world, which I don't know we'll touch on or not. But I wanted to get you on to talk about the journey that you have been on. I think for the audience that I have on this channel, very much product managers, but I think people who are generally just interested in how you can thrive in a really technical environment. And it's almost about like, let's bust the myth around the fact that you don't need that technical background and you can upskill, you can thrive, and you can work with others that are really technical. So that, but also your career journey, the pivot that you made, I'm really fascinated with how people's careers evolve and how you made that decision
to eventually take that plunge is something I'd love to get into as well. So I am going to leave chapters somewhere linked, definitely below, but maybe also on the screen, so you can jump around to whatever section you are most interested in. Now, let me do a really quick overview of Alice, nutshell, but then obviously I'll get you to deep dive into it. So interestingly, I didn't know this until a couple of days ago, but you are a French and linguistics major. Obviously no coding background, but you happen to be one of the top pre-sales solutions consultants at Zendesk. And then obviously you quit that corporate job to pursue the founder journey and then help other tech professionals really go beyond just selling a pitch deck and understanding fundamentally what that thing is that they are selling so that they can sell more, they can obviously sound smarter, in turn make more money, etc. So now, Alice, I guess you are one of the industry's first ever technical sales coaches. So you help account executives. I know you help obviously solutions consultants, but I'm also going to say that you help PMs and honestly, probably other roles in tech as well, because upskilling technically is not limited to those roles whatsoever. So I think you are helping a wide range of people with what you are doing. But with that being said, do you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah. And thanks for that intro. And I agree with you. Like I hope the kind of knowledge that I'm putting out into the world helps many different people get the knowledge they need to succeed in their careers and honestly feel good showing up at work every day and feeling confident, because one of the most draining things in a job is not feeling like you know what you're talking about. So I'm Alice Egan. I'm founder of a company called SaaS Savvy, and I am LinkedIn's first technical sales coach, specifically for account executives and solutions consultants who are selling B2B enterprise software. And I teach them about software, cloud computing, and APIs so that they can sell software, IT services, and now AI solutions and actually know what they're talking about. When you actually know what you're talking about, your customers want to work with you. They want to buy from you, especially in this day when everyone's getting 100 emails a day. Like if you can truly connect with your customers, not only because you've got charisma, but because you truly know what you're talking about and you can guide them and advise them as an authority figure, your life will change. I experienced that firsthand coming into this industry, having zero technical knowledge. I honestly didn't even know what software was. And once I started to learn this stuff, I could really connect with my customers because I wasn't afraid to go a level deeper. So that is what I hope to give to account executives and solutions consultants who are live in real time with customers, talking about technology, but also product managers who are working live in real time, which can be very intimidating with technical counterparts and engineers, and having to understand, right, like trade-offs, architecture, why are we building this? What is this going to do for the business? All of those different financial and technical measurements that come together. I want to give people the knowledge to show up in those conversations and feel like I can contribute. And I don't need to just rely on someone else or stay quiet.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think something we talked about in a recent conversation was that sales and that human element of building the trust to make a sale, those relationships, that network, like that is not fundamentally going anywhere. With the rise of AI, we're hearing a lot about what is going to be eliminated and replaced and changed in tech, but it's that human element of sales that, and even customer success, I would say, that is not going to change. And even product management to some extent, having those interactions with customers, that's never going to go anywhere. And I don't know, my hypothesis is that might even become more important as so many things get automated and almost get a little bit robotic. So I think you're playing in a space that isn't going anywhere, which is awesome. So
yeah. And like I have a friend in Berlin who's an account executive in the cyber industry. And she said, you know, a lot of people in tech sales right now are talking about how hard it is to break into new accounts. No one wants to open emails. She's like, yeah, in the IT industry, like people don't open your email by default. Like they're definitely not clicking links. Like these are IT, this is IT staff. So you have to be able to go to networking events and conferences and really interact with people face to face where you can't rely on ChatGPT. So knowing your stuff, can I curse? Or we're trying to keep it YouTube clean?
Yeah, no, go for it.
Oh, I'm sorry. You got to know your shit. When you know your shit, you can go anywhere. You can be ad hoc. So that's what I'm here to do.
Awesome. So I want to get into at least a bit of a snapshot of your, like, how you got here. I know we talked briefly about the Zendesk stint, but fun fact, you had 22 jobs before you ever got into tech. I'm sure there's a lot involved there. Maybe you can give us the high level summary of what that looks like. I think whatever you end up like, and I'm so fascinated by career journeys, as I've said. And I think no matter what industry, no matter what role, it's really interesting to think about the skills that you pick up along the way in every kind of industry and role that you have, because I think it ultimately just accumulates to whatever that next thing that you are doing. So I'd love to know what your career journey was. And I don't know, were there any skills that you picked up in totally unrelated jobs that you had that you think might be helping you today with your founder journey and everything you're doing?
So I am originally from the New York City area. Grew up in the early 2000s and honestly was just not tapped into the tech world at all. I mean, like I used Facebook, but my main interests were going out with my friends, reading, and languages. So when I went to university, I went to college in New Orleans, Louisiana, and I majored in French and linguistics. So yeah, I would say like in college, I was very used to people being like, "Ah, great, okay, like you'll work at the coffee shop for the rest of your life." No offense to people working at coffee shops, but I guess I never felt like the world was going to open up for me. I was really going to have to figure out what gave me purpose and meaning, and also what was going to pay the bills. In college, I studied abroad twice, in Paris and then in Dakar, Senegal. And that led me to get this scholarship to live in Belgium for about 2 years on the government's dime, continuing to study French, obviously traveling, working at restaurants, and also interning in the European Commission. That experience was really meaningful for me because I got to spend several years living abroad where I was by default an outsider, being from a different country. And my real goal in studying abroad was to speak really, really fluent French. And I built this skill there of not being afraid to ask people, what does that mean? Whether I was learning French or when I was in Senegal learning Wolof, like I was never embarrassed to ask, what does that mean? Because I was obviously a foreigner who spoke a different language. And I think all of my years doing so much restaurant work, interfacing with different kinds of people on the regular, and also building that muscle constantly of like, what does this mean? Where does this go? What is this new dish? Like you're just not afraid to ask questions. And that served me so much when I finally, after 22 jobs over my like high school and college experience, when I got into tech, it was kind of like landing in a new country. I mean, moving to San Francisco, but I ended up pretty quickly landing a job for a B2B SaaS company. Not that I knew what that was, but because I just spent the last few years like dropping into different places and learning how to speak the language, I didn't even think to hold back. I was like, why would they know that I studied French? Like I kind of need to know this to do my job. So I think that really set me up to eventually get into a company like Zendesk and really thrive there because I wasn't afraid to be like, hey, I don't know. Can you explain this to me?
A really cool link back to where you are now and the work that you're doing to help others ask that question. It's obviously a daunting question to ask because you never know when you're in the room if you're the only one who doesn't get the thing. But in a similar way, I think the reason I've always felt like I've thrived in product is being really curious. Like I love learning how things work. And I'm not afraid to ask a developer how something works or what the hell they mean by what they're saying or what this API does, or even at one point, what the hell is an API. But yeah, I think it kind of leans back to not being afraid to ask, having that curiosity and actually wanting to learn. But I think the more interesting thing about what you said is it sounds like you obviously never had any limits imposed like on yourself, real or fake, in terms of what you thought you could do. Like for you, it was never questionable that you could go into tech, you could sell software, regardless of the fact that you had no technical background or tech background or corporate background or whatever it might be. And I think that's really interesting when you think about things like what is it that people might end up doing if they didn't impose those limits upon themselves. Like that's something that I've been thinking about a lot recently, because I think the way the world is going, who said you need a degree and certain qualifications? Like you can literally throw yourself into anything, and it's your attitude to saying like, yeah, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to ask the right questions, find the right resources. So I think that was I didn't know that about your story. So that's really cool. But one thing I do remember about some of the work you were spearheading at Zendesk was, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you were running something internally that was helping to upskill people in Zendesk or employees at Zendesk with technical understanding, right? So tell me a little bit more about that and like championing that internally, but also was that quite an intentional move by you to kick that off internally and then turn that into SaaS Savvy? Or did that happen naturally where you started doing that and then you realized, hold on, I could actually do this on my own and make it its own thing?
So I'll start a little bit before to answer this question. So basically my first few years in San Francisco, I was working at Series A, Series B, B2B SaaS startups in customer success. As I said, I knew nothing about the tech and or the tech industry. So those first like 2.5 years were really hard because I just didn't understand the lingo, the motions. I didn't understand anything that was going on around me. I obviously did well, but I was really lost, and it made getting up every day and going to work hard. I ended up applying for an associate pre-sales solutions consultant role at Zendesk. I had never heard of what solutions consulting was, didn't know what pre-sales was, but I had built this skill in my last 2 B2B SaaS jobs of working with customers, helping them wrangle software into all sorts of weird workflows that it wasn't necessarily built for, doing demos, doing webinars. So I had a lot of the skills, and Zendesk took a chance on me. They said, okay, like we'll take this young woman and we'll train her up, we'll give her some more ramp time, and we'll turn her into a solutions consultant. And in 6 months, she'll have like a vague idea of what being an SC is. When I joined as an associate solutions consultant, I was supporting account executives selling basically all up and down the West Coast. So selling to all different kinds of industries. And I really succeeded in my first year. And so then I got promoted to being the solutions consultant for San Francisco, which meant I was only selling to companies based in San Francisco, which meant like either any big like legacy technology company or like any hot unicorn that like bought up all the advertising space in BART. I was working with those companies. And that was a huge turning point for me because I went from selling to, I don't know, just like maybe more tech laggard industries to selling to other technology companies, all cloud native, like all, most of them were built in the last like 10 or 15 years, and they had big goals. They had multiple systems we needed to connect to. And then I ended up just by chance selling to a lot of financial services companies, which means you have even more things to keep track of in terms of like regulation and like weird integrations that aren't just going to work out of the box, like the Salesforce integration. So you really have to get into the weeds. And then I got transferred to London, and I ended up also working with the fintechs there. So there was just so much stuff I was constantly learning, not only about being a solutions consultant, but about the tech industry. And then of course, about APIs, our platform. Within the first year that I worked there, they launched a platform, and then like every other product they launched after that was some sort of developer product. So I wasn't even selling to like an HR buyer or like a CX person. I was like selling directly to ITs and developers. So as I said, like I didn't know what I was talking about. I didn't understand these questions. But instead of like hiding behind them, I just started writing out everything that I knew. I made all these internal docs. I made internal courses for myself. And then all these new people would join my team. And they would also be like, actually, like, sorry, like, what is an API? Like, what is JSON? And I'd be like, oh, I have this doc. So I just started giving out docs. Then people found out about them. Then I made them formal. Then I started doing my own internal trainings. And then, yeah, Zendesk took note. And that's when I ended up getting a job to build Tech Academy, which was an internal course at Zendesk that taught people the foundations in software, cloud, and APIs they needed to sell our products. That was in my last year. So it was like, I think the 5th year is at Zendesk. I mean, I took that job because I was really passionate about it. It was really hard to sell our products without having this big understanding of the cloud world, the platform world, and like really being able to talk confidently about APIs. So I was very passionate about that. And then I think just, working in tech and having connections at other companies, I was like, wow, this is really like an industry problem. People are really trying their best to sell technology. They just don't have the background to do it. So when I figured, well, there's like hundreds and thousands of account executives and solutions consultants starting and growing their careers in this super fast growing industry, I think there's a market opportunity for me to leave and do this on my own.
So one of the most common questions I get on this channel, not so much now, weirdly, and I don't know that if that's because of AI or if it's because of people like you doing these things, but one of the main questions I get is around aspiring PMs first thinking that they need that coding background, that technical background as a prerequisite to even consider the role, which I think is actually just ridiculous that we think that we need that prerequisite to even entertain the idea of, could I possibly enter the tech world? Could I possibly be a PM because I don't have this? And I feel like for a lot of people, the first thought is not, let me figure out how I can upskill myself and I will find a way and I'm going to pursue this path anyway. But the second question is more practical, and we'll get into practical tips later, is I don't know how to talk to my engineers. And I've had a lot of one-on-one coaching calls with people as well. And we spend the majority of our time on that. So I just wanted to call out again, like, you are not just helping those people in sales, in solutions consulting, in customer support. Like, I think this very much extends to product folks as well, and maybe even designers to some extent. I know for the products that I worked on at Zendesk, they were very technical. Like you said, they were integrations, they were part of developer platform. And even for a designer, you need to have an appreciation of how those things work to properly design for it. And I remember spending a lot of time with my designer really just going over a lot of those basics, which to some extent I was just grasping myself. And I come from not a technical, but I come from like an information systems background in terms of my degree. And I can tell you that didn't teach me a whole lot in terms of what's actually applicable in the real world. But I quickly want to ask you, big tech or startups? Because obviously you've done both, as have I. Do you have a preference? Like, if you had to choose, or like, which one? Yeah, big tech or startups? But segueing to when did you decide to take or how did you decide, I should say, to take the plunge to going off on your own and building SaaS Savvy? Was that a natural decision point that kind of surfaced itself, or did you really have to think hard about whether you do it or not? Was there a moment in the shower? I don't know. Like, what did that look like?
I've always been drawn to helping people. I would not call myself a Mother Teresa type, but I have always liked helping support people do something, whether that's, I mean, as a pre-sales solutions consultant, when you're helping customers understand a product, you are educating them on your product, their future outcomes. And I enjoyed that. And I enjoyed helping other people who I like on my team, who I could totally understand where they were. All this new jargon, new language. It really gave me a lot of satisfaction to help people figure out how to get on top of that and have a more fulfilling career with that behind them. So honestly, I think even my first year at Zendesk, once I had figured out what a pre-sales SC was, I was like, oh, I could write an ebook on this is what solutions consulting was. Because I remember my first night before the job, I went on YouTube and I honestly couldn't really find anything on it. So then like as Zendesk products got more technical, as I started working with more technical customers, I mean, that same muscle was there of like, oh, I can educate people what being a pre-sales SC is, and actually like what does even working in the tech industry mean? Are you working for NVIDIA? Are you working for Salesforce? Are you working for AWS? So it was just kind of a natural thing I did the whole time I was at Zendesk. And then honestly, like, I mean, working at Zendesk completely changed my life, like, especially during COVID, like the equity gave me, I mean, I was working at restaurants like up until I got the job at Zendesk, and I still did catering. Like I never had a steady enough income that let me live without constant stress of like student loans are coming, just all the random stuff about life. I never thought I would be able to own a home. And like, thanks to Zendesk, that changed. Like I was able to buy a home. I was able to pay off my student loans. And I think also going through COVID and just seeing how many people really needed the kind of jobs in tech that so many people just by default, because we've all been told for the last 50 years, like, oh no, like only Bill Gates and Steve Jobs could possibly understand how this works. I was like, no, actually more people need this information so more kinds of people can come into tech. And honestly, that really motivated me. I was like, well, I could stay here comfortable, or I could take this chance to do something that just brings me a lot of meaning and that helps other people in a small way do better in their jobs, or maybe like break into this industry that they thought was behind them. So yeah, and I was just like blessed with this like once in a lifetime equity from a tech company. And I was like, all right, well, here we go. That was kind of it.
Now, I do want to spend time talking about SaaS Savvy, of course. So for someone who's not familiar with SaaS Savvy, and obviously I've heard a little bit from you today, how would you describe SaaS Savvy?
So SaaS Savvy is the name of my business, and my business is online courses and coaching for tech sales AEs and SCs who want to build that technical muscle and be able to talk about software with confidence. So I've built a course and training program called Speak Software, Sell More, and it's truly the first course of its kind. It's not built for kids. It's not built for aspiring developers. It is built for people who talk about software with business buyers, with CTOs all day long. And it is built to give you the foundations that you need to understand basically the entire tech industry from a high level. Like truly, you do not need to learn how to code. You do not need to learn the intricate details of software unless it really pertains to your job. You really need to understand the story of software, and it's super interesting. So the way that I have approached it that's really unique is, again, like I don't teach you coding. This is not a vocabulary quiz. What I found in my journey from going from not technical at all and maybe being able to like futz around with HTML on like a WordPress blog back in 2013, to being able to sell $1 million enterprise software solutions to, Fortune 500 companies, is that context that helps you understand technical concepts and jargon, and that also makes you sound like a tech industry vet who's been around the block, seen a thing or two, and really understands all those paradigm shifts and new technologies. So I teach through this lens called context and concepts. So I teach through tech history, so filling in the gaps on the history of computing, history of software, and then how that led to cloud computing, software as a service. We learn about how software actually gets developed, like how does the cake get made? And then, of course, APIs and integrations, because that is the beating heart of software, the ability to integrate with other software because it doesn't exist in a vacuum. So through the story, which is really, as a salesperson, like, I mean, I kind of hate how the corporate industry has co-opted the word storytelling, but that is what you are doing. You are telling stories of software that are supposed to resonate and convert customers. So I teach you technology through history, so you have that context, and you're it's like learning a new language. Like you are hearing that jargon in a story surrounded by meaning, so that when we get to some of the lessons where it's like, okay, this is what this means. This is what this means. You have the context for it, and it's actually interesting, and you're not just learning something in a void.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. And I can remember, I don't know, early noob Anika as a first time official PM, quite literally Googling and reading blogs probably when I was working on the Salesforce integration about what on earth many of these things were. And sure, I could remember it on the spot, but it wasn't until over the years I was working on it and I was obviously not having the history, but applying it to the thing I was working on, having conversations with people about it and actually using it in my day-to-day, that it slowly started to make sense. So that's really interesting. And I think you're right about the storytelling. We often remember stories. We don't just remember the term or the concept, but we will remember a story, especially if it's an interesting one. So that's a really interesting take that you have on this. So you've been working on this for quite a few years now. How has SaaS Savvy evolved from where you started to where you are now? And could you see it evolving in the way that it has? Or is it a case of, no, I knew that I was doing this from day one? What does that evolution look like?
So I left Zendesk in June of 2022, and I gave myself the first 6 months to move to Germany, and also to really formally learn everything that I'd picked up on the job at Zendesk, everything that I learned like while building out Tech Academy. I said, okay, the first 6 months, I'm gonna study. I want to get Amazon Web Services certified. I want a little like official street cred. And then I set out to build this course. It's crazy to think, but when I spent that 6 months doing my like DIY computer science and cloud computing master's degree, that was before ChatGPT. I think it launched like somewhere in the middle, but I didn't get it yet. So I really built the first initial course in like my beta, sans ChatGPT and AI. I would say my vision hasn't changed because from my experience doing this successfully, it's really hard to like learn cloud computing or learn software as a service if you don't understand what computing is in the first place. If you cannot fundamentally understand what software actually is, because it's not just the app that you see on your screen, it's going to be really hard to speak with a developer about how software is architected on the back end, or like understand why you need an EC2 server to host an application. You really have to understand what it is, and it's okay to say that you don't, because we're not meant to. So I always knew that I wanted to build this course. I think AI, I've had a lot of people ask me like, why don't you just build an AI agent? And I've been very steadfast in that, look, AI is obviously incredible. AI can give you information, but I'm trying to help you synthesize it. I need you to be able to like drop yourself into a networking conference and be able to talk about things without having to talk to a chatbot. And in order to do that, like, I mean, I just found my notes the other day from studying for my AWS exam. Like I spent a week in December of 2022 writing stuff down on pieces of loose leaf paper and studying. Like you have to put in the time if you really want to know something. I think what did change as I built out the course, as I did my beta and got feedback, was there has to be a way for adult learners to like really apply this to something interesting and relevant to them. So I ended up incorporating podcasts and tech journalism that I think a lot of people don't naturally trend towards. But when you start hearing experts talk about enterprise AI adoption, or you start hearing people talk about, like there's a podcast I include about this, this like attempted hack on the Linux operating system a few years ago, and you know how that really could have caused havoc on the web. when you start hearing people talk about these terms and different concepts that are relevant to your customer conversations, that's what really gives you this unique perspective and edge and allows you to show up and have something to say. So I would say that is the biggest, I guess, change from the start, because probably at the beginning it was a little bit more like, this is this and this is that.
Yep.
And that doesn't stick. So I think that storytelling and really sticking to my guns about like, no, this is a course, this is a resource you can always go back to, because AI makes things easy to get, but not easy to always retain.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. And I was going to ask you, how do you think being technical will change with AI? But I think that last point you just said probably touches on it. I don't know if you want to add anything onto that in terms of how you think that will change. But I don't think it's fundamentally going to take away the fact that you need to sit there and process something and be able to apply it to things in life and to your work, but also in those conversations when someone throws a question at you that you didn't expect. Again, you're not going to be able to ask the chatbot. So yeah.
I think the word technical really trips people up. And in building this course and really digging into like, what does this mean? I've realized there's so many terms in software that have multiple meanings in different scenarios. For example, like a computer platform is different than a cloud platform, is different than a SaaS platform, but we call them all platform. Don't get me started on APIs. Like there are APIs in everything. And, an API in an operating system is not the same as a JSON-based web API that's connecting Zendesk and Salesforce. So I think the word technical really trips people up too. Yes, AI is making coding easier, but programmers, developers, engineers, whatever you want to call them, they're still going to need that knowledge of how it works on the back end. They're still going to need that story of software, understanding the interplay between hardware and software, so that they can build secure applications that scale and not just build a buggy front end. So I think developers still need to know that bigger story. And that's what's going to keep them relevant as coding becomes something that computers can do. And I think product managers and people in tech sales, again, it's going to be more and more about those relationships. AI is a nascent technology. So really being able to provide guidance and say, hey, this is new, but this is what some customers are doing. This is how it's actually driving outcomes for them. Here's what we could do for you. Like you have to be able to tell that story. And honestly, really know what you're talking about. So I think that's where being technical is going to go. It's having that higher level, big picture view into the whole ecosystem rather than like digging down into one little term or like a very specific line of code.
Yes, that's so true. Something I'm learning through my current experience in my current role. One, obviously, everything is interconnected. But a really specific example is we're doing some work on a gigantic monolith, like the flagship product of the company that I work at. And something that superficially you would look at and think this is a tiny change is actually like there are a stream of other effects that change has on, I don't know, databases, other systems, the fundamental architecture that the company is trying to get to, and probably a whole raft of other things I don't even know. And I think, just to your point, I think working to the point about developers getting, not that they are getting replaced by AI, but if that thought has ever been thrown out there, which it is in certain conversations, when I think about the scale at which a lot of big tech companies work, is you can't account for that scale and the way you need to design something and build something by just using AI. Yes, it can help write you the basics of some kind of code, but it doesn't understand your scale and your volume and the thresholds that you have, the performance that you're trying to maintain, and then the consequences that has for customers, even financial consequences for the business, and so many things. Like it's very complex once you get to a certain size and scale.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, like I think it's funny that we even call them coders because, writing code is one of many jobs for a developer.
Totally.
From deploying software, architecting software, it's just one of many things that they do. So
So I would love to move on to practical tips. So as I mentioned, many of the audience, they might be PMs, but maybe someone not a PM will stumble upon this as well. It's the questions around like, I don't have that technical background. I'm even switching. I'm having a career change. I've worked in this industry. I want to get into tech, whatever it is. Where do I start? What would you recommend to someone who doesn't know where to start, feels like they're below zero? Obviously they want to learn. I think that motivation and desire has to be there, but what is the first step you recommend they take?
This totally can be done. Totally can be done. To break into an industry or company, you've got to have connections. If you don't have connections, go build a LinkedIn profile, start connecting with people. Look to your local community. Do you know anyone who works in this industry? Ask them out for coffee. Always write a thank you note. I don't care what people say. Do it. Show gratitude, and just be human with people. The other thing I would say, and I've been thinking a lot about this lately, and I'd love to hear what you think about this. So I've just, for some reason, grown up around a lot of UX designers. Like my fiance is a UX designer. I've lived with UX designers, and a lot of them, when I was in San Francisco in the 2010s, went through these UX boot camps. That was kind of the thing to do of the day. Yeah. If you wanted to get into UX, because it was such a new field. And they all came out of these boot camps with these UX portfolios. Like, hey, I haven't actually worked in a job before doing UX, but I just spent the last 3 months doing all these projects. Here's my work. Yeah. Why don't we have that for product management or sales? So something I want to start doing with my one-to-one coaching clients, basically, you can take my course, you can work with me one-on-one to prep for interviews, plan your tech sales career, really strategize about that. And one thing I want to work with my clients on is building a portfolio. So if you want to get into product management, my recommendation is not to go on LinkedIn and write about your job search. Like everybody's doing that. What if you started doing product management? Like look up whatever the top 3 companies that you want to work for. Like what is their product? Like, I don't know, make a portfolio. If you're a product manager, if you want to get a job at Databricks as a product manager, like research what they're doing and start building something that you could put up on a blog or put up on LinkedIn and say, hey, like, I want to work at this company. Here's what I would do. No one's doing that. Build yourself a portfolio, build the product manager portfolio, build the tech sales portfolio, do a pitch of like, hey, I really want to work at Snowflake. If I was to get a job at your company, here's what I would do. Just keep putting that somewhere. Recruiters will be like, oh, wow, this person's a chameleon. They can sell hardware, they can sell software. So do something a little bit creative.
Yeah, I even say pick your own, pick a product that you like or even a product you hate. It doesn't matter. And say how you would make it better and publish that somewhere. I used to say, I don't use Medium much anymore, but I used to say, put a blog on Medium, put that blog on LinkedIn, create your own, put it on Substack these days, make your own website, put it on there, put it on your CV when you're applying for jobs as well. But yeah, you're right. I can't remember, but I feel like I've made a video on this. But my recommendation anytime someone asks this is, yeah, you have to build your own portfolio and you can do that through side projects. And in this day and age, no one is going to look down upon you having a side project. That's not, maybe there are some companies or industries that are against that, but for the most part, that is seen as a good thing that you're dabbling in something on the side. Obviously, if there's no conflicts, and you should show that off. It also shows that you are motivated enough where you're not just waiting for the job to land on your lap. You're actually taking the steps to learn what is required in the product development lifecycle before officially getting that title. So I totally agree with you.
Yeah, it's the initiative. And especially if you are starting out, you don't have a ton of experience, like companies just want to know that you are going to rise to the challenge. So if you take that initiative and start making stuff without them asking you to, like, I think that's really going to differentiate you in the job market.
Agreed. One more question on practical tips. How do you build confidence with others who are more technical than you? So I know we're using the word technical. Feel free to define it if you want to, but just generally speaking, if you are in that journey to upskilling, maybe you're a customer of SaaS Savvy or whatever it might be, but you're still on that journey. We know it's going to take time, yet you still have to do the work with other people, maybe really senior engineers, or maybe in your case, for sales folks, you are having those conversations with business leaders trying to make those sales. How do you have that confidence when you're not quite at that level that you're aspiring to be at?
So maybe I didn't finish my thought on this before, but when I said like the word technical, like kind of throws people off.
Yeah.
Like, again, we are allowed to define, like, being technical in software engineering means you can code and you like understand the technical details of how software works at a very, very deep level. 100%. That is not me. I am very proudly tech sales technical, where I can tell this amazing story. Like, you are very product management technical. So you can have conversations with engineers, you understand this stuff. Maybe you're not coding it, but obviously that means different things in different settings. So I guess like number one way to feel confident is just to remind yourself, like, you are not a developer unless you want to be one. Don't feel like you have to have their level of understanding, and do not be afraid to ask questions. Like, do the work. Don't just show up and people always react better if you have like done some research and you go to them and be like, hey, can you like, did I get this right? Rather than just like constantly relying on people to explain things to you from scratch. So I think if you're working with engineers, maybe like, I don't know, like writing up a doc of your questions and then running them through that, I think is a way to elicit more help. Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. And you made a point earlier about people love talking about themselves. I always say to PMs, at least, if you're like, get your engineers in a room or now maybe on a Zoom and ask them about how the thing works that they built. Like, if there's anything engineers love, it's talking about the thing that they built and how it works. Get them to draw the diagram, or you draw the diagram as they are talking, and they will correct you. And it's not in a bad way. It's a great way. And just use that as a tool. I think it's also the way that you ask, and it's rather than I'm not confident on this thing. I think also focusing on these are the other things that I bring to this. And sure, I don't bring the technical part of it, but that's not my core job. But I bring all of these other things, like in product, I bring the customer perspective. I focus on what like the business is trying to achieve, and the engineer might not necessarily have appreciation for those. So just remember what your strengths are and what you do bring, and don't just focus on the gaps that you are still trying to fill.
That's a great point. And I would also add, like, I am completely indebted to the Zendesk solutions development and platform architecture team, because they were so helpful and gracious. And I would say the other thing about like exactly what you're saying, like, get people to explain and connect and like learn together, because oftentimes like I would ask my solution developers, like, what is this? And they would be like, oh, actually, you know what? I've never explained that. Like, it always led them back to Google and figuring out something on their own. And I think that also, that builds that connection, that growth together, because you're usually right. Like there's some synthesis happening there. It doesn't become so one-sided. So yeah, 99% of the time people are going to be super supportive.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I feel like all the work we do in tech is you're basically constantly problem solving. There's never an answer that's just done and sealed and you just move on. There's always okay, if we do this, then we've got to solve for this, and now we've got to solve for this. And that is just a constant conversation with all the various people involved. So yes, I totally agree with you. I feel like we could chat forever. So maybe we can get to wrapping this up. If this is a hit, maybe we can get you on for a part 2, which would be awesome. But to end off with, tell people about where they can find you and where they can find SaaS Savvy. I know you have a masterclass starting on October 8th. So do you want to share a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So I guess first and foremost, you can find me on LinkedIn. Anika will put the link in this video. But I'm Alice Egan, SaaS Savvy on LinkedIn. I have basically like 3 offers right now. You can buy my course, Speak Software, Sell More, and take it on your own time. There's a community where you can ask questions. If you are looking for a new job, you have a new job that's way more technical than you ever thought, and you really want some one-to-one assistance, technical tutoring, I'm your girl. Like, I will help you really thrive in that role and get you feeling technically confident. I also have, and I'm going to be having more free resources on my YouTube channel. So definitely follow me there. I'm going to be talking a lot more about tech companies and what it means to do tech sales at those companies. But on October 8th, I'm having my monthly masterclass. So I have a few different topics that I cover. And in this one on October 8th at 5 p.m. GMT, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard, I'm actually going to be showing you my bread and butter. I'm going to be teaching you to understand the modern tech landscape that you are selling into or building products within through history. So you're going to get some amazing context. It's going to be a nice little nostalgic walk down memory lane, which is very on trend right now. And you're going to walk away being like, oh, I understand how the puzzle fits together.
Great. That's very exciting. Thank you, Alice. I will put all the relevant links down below. And I really hope that we send some aspiring tech professionals, no matter what area of tech your way. I would absolutely love to support you in this endeavor. Thank you so much for being here. I really, like I said at the start, really wanted to focus on like the career evolution and obviously touch very much on SaaS Savvy as a part of that, which I think we did. So yeah, thank you so much for being here. Congratulations on everything you've put into SaaS Savvy to date. I'm very excited to see where it continues to evolve. And congratulations in advance for your wedding on Monday as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. It was such a joy to be here. I love talking about this. So I'd be happy to come back anytime.